Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanishalaakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. In this session, we will be discussing from the 48th verse of the 9th chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. We come almost to the end of this chapter, describing the passing away of Bhishma Deva in the presence of Lord Krishna. Tato Yudhishthiro Gatva Saha Krishno Gajahvayam Pitaram Santvayamasa Gandharim Cha Tapasvinim. The meaning of this verse is, thereafter Maharaj Yudhishthira at once went to his capital, Hastinapura, accompanied by Lord Sri Krishna, and there he consoled his uncle and aunt Gandhari, Uncle Dhritarashtra and Aunt Gandhari, who was as an ascetic. Gandharim cha tapasvini. Tapasvi, she was an ascetic. So Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, the father and the mother of Duryodhana and his brothers, were the elder uncle and aunt of Maharaj Yudhishthira. After the battle of Kurukshetra, the celebrated couple, having lost all their sons and grandsons, were under the care of Maharaj Yudhishthira. What happened in the battle of Kurukshetra? All the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, they were killed in the battle. And even the grandsons, everyone was killed from Dhritarashtra's side, Kaurava's side. And they were, because Dhritarashtra was very, very confident that his sons will win the battle because they had the best support. But Dhritarashtra, being materialistic, he made a miscalculation. He did not consider Krishna, even though he was not fighting, actually, he had not taken up any weapons in the battle, he was on the side of the Pandavas. Jayastu Panduputranam Yesham Pakshe Janardana. Whosoever side Krishna is, that side ultimately is going to win. Even Sanjaya, at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, while narrating what is happening on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, before the battle is about to begin, Sanjaya says at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, 45 minutes, that's all. Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. So Sanjaya concludes, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishno Yatra Partho Dhanurdharaha Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutir Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama. Wherever there is Krishna and wherever there is Arjuna, his pure devotee, there is certainly victory. So even before the battle began, Sanjaya predicted and announced to Dhritarashtra that don't expect victory for the Kauravas, because Krishna and Arjuna, Krishna and his pure devotee, of course all the Pandavas are pure devotees, but still, wherever there is Krishna and Arjuna, there is victory. Pandavas are guaranteed to win. So all of the material calculations ultimately are a failure. Everything actually happens even in the material world according to the plan of the Supreme Lord, according to the will of Govinda. That's how everything actually is happening, is going on. Though Krishna never takes away the free will of the living entities, he never takes away the free will. But the living entities are very, 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 very tiny. They are insignificant parts of the Supreme Lord, who is unlimitedly powerful. And we have some power, some strength, some knowledge, some ability. Very, 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 very tiny. Insignificant. Atomic. We are atomic. And Krishna is the complete whole, the total manifestation of the material, spiritual, everything. So there is no comparison. It is foolish to think that I can become God. I can compete with God, Krishna. That is utterly foolish, utterly foolish. So therefore, only devotees have this sense that what am I in comparison to Krishna? So a devotee's humility is very reasonable and natural, and it is very meaningful to take a humble position in presence of Krishna. And always remain so, because eternally that is our position. So here the explanation is being given that what is the situation of Dhritarashtra and Gandhari after the battle of Kurukshetra. They lost all their sons and grandsons. So they were passing their days in great agony over such a heavy loss of life, and were practically living the life of ascetics. What did they have to aspire for further in their life, even materially speaking? Of course, from a spiritual perspective, success in this life, whatever we may do, is if we become Krishna conscious and put our body in Krishna consciousness. But for materialists, they make calculations. I will live my life in such a way that I enjoy the prime of my youth, and when I become old, then my family members, my descendants will take over, and they will enjoy life in this material world, power or wealth or some fame, etc., all these things. But that is never to happen. That is never to happen. Everyone meets with defeat, though everyone means all those who are materialistic. They meet with defeat in every step of their life in this material world. Because Maya is very, very powerful. We are all under the clutches of Maya. Dhritarashtra was similarly in the clutches of Maya, making calculation. Oh, somehow, let me try to kill the fatherless sons of Pandu. And once the 5 Pandavas are killed, then my sons will take over from me. I am the caretaker king, but they will take over and become regular king, regular emperor. This was his calculation, but all his calculations were completely upset. So, Prabhupada is describing the situation, the condition of these two, Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, the uncle and aunt of Yudhishthira. And not only they suffered due to the heavy loss of life in the battle of Kurukshetra, but the death news of Bhishma Deva, uncle of Dhritarashtra, was another great shock for the king and the queen. For both Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, it was another great shock. Because Bhishma Deva was the well-wisher of everyone in the family. Therefore, they required solace from Maharaj Yudhishthira. So Maharaj Yudhishthira was conscious of his duty, and he at once hurried to the spot with Lord Krishna and satisfied the bereaved Dhritarashtra with kind words from both himself and the Lord also. Krishna and Yudhishthira, both of them, they pacified Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. Both the Lord and his pure devotee, they are always kind to everyone, including the suffering souls who may be rebellious, who may be envious, who may be not following the principles of Dharma. But still, the Lord is always looking upon every living being as his own child. A father looks upon his child, same way, because Krishna is the Supreme Father of every living being. And Krishna naturally will have concern for the rebellious, conditioned, suffering souls of this world. And Dhritarashtra is one of them, like all other suffering souls of this world. So Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, they were pacified by Yudhishthira and Krishna. Now, regarding Gandhari, there's a particular mention here. Gandhari was a powerful ascetic, although she was living the life of a faithful wife and a kind mother. Gandhari, she was not like Dhritarashtra, materialistic. She was very, very advanced spiritually. Prabhupada says she was on the level of Bhishma as regards spiritual attainment. Because she was a very faithful wife of her husband Dhritarashtra. It is said that Gandhari also voluntarily closed her eyes because of the blindness of her husband. When she came to know that I am going to get married to a blind king before her marriage, she voluntarily agreed to remain blind whole life, voluntarily. Her eyesight was perfect, but she voluntarily agreed to close her eyes whole life because of the blindness of her husband. A wife's duty is to follow the husband's sent person, and Gandhari was so true to her husband that she followed him even in his perpetual blindness in the entire life. She followed him. Therefore, in her actions, she was a great ascetic, tapasvini, described here. See, particularly, they said Gandharim cha tapasvini. So, she was a great ascetic. Besides this austerity she had undertaken, the shock she suffered because the wholesale killing of her 100 sons and their grandsons also was certainly too much for a woman. They are soft-hearted. They are very, very soft in their heart. So Gandhari was very much aggrieved on the loss of all her sons. All her sons. But she suffered all this just like an ascetic, tapasvini. That means she tolerated the suffering, the grief. She tolerated the grief. So Gandhari, although she was a woman, she is no less than Bhishma Deva in character, perfect character. She did all her duties exactly according to the scriptural directions. She was a faithful wife. She was a kind mother. But she knew that her policy was always that Dhritarashtra should not cheat the Pandavas. She warned Dhritarashtra, her own husband, and she warned her son Duryodhana to not cheat the Pandavas, to not attempt to usurp the kingdom which rightfully belongs to the Pandavas. That was Gandhari's policy. I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.